It's my pleasure and honor on behalf of the members of English Speaking Union to invite the President of AZAD Jammu and Kashmir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. Aziz Mehman, President of the English-Speaking Union of Pakistan, Mr. Kaleem Farooqi, Vice President, Mr. Tariq Ikram, Vice President, Mr. Majid Aziz, his Secretary General, diplomats, ladies and gentlemen, and I also want to recognize Governor Kamal Asfar and Abdul Qadir Jafar Sahab, distinguished businessman and a diplomat par excellence. Now, it has always intrigued me what the English-Speaking Union does. Probably it comprises presentations like mine, and it has an aura, a mystique about it, and I'm glad, I feel honored that you have invited me here today. The other thing that struck me as I entered into this hall is that we are gathering here today in the James Bond Hall. So I don't know whether I should act as a sleuth or whether I should reveal whatever I know. But in any case, congratulations on your activities and the golden, glorious tradition that you have established over the years. So congratulations, English-Speaking Union of Pakistan. The subject that has been given to me is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And I think I can say that I qualify to speak on the subject, not because I'm President of AZAD Jammu and Kashmir, but because I spent 8 years of my diplomatic career in China. First, as a junior diplomat, I learned the Chinese language way back in 1982-83 in a Chinese university. Went on to serve in our embassy as a junior diplomat, and then I returned to Beijing in 2008 and served as Pakistan's ambassador to China for 4 years. So I have some perspective. And since I remain in touch with the Chinese government, the Chinese embassy, and also with the government of Pakistan, I think I know a little bit about the subject. So how shall I construct my talk? Let me talk about the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. This is a phenomenal, historic initiative. Before I speak about China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, I have to speak about the BRI. Most of you are familiar with the BRI. This is an initiative, a transformational initiative that has been taken by China, and it is changing the strategic and economic landscape of the world. Let me give you some figures. 65 countries are participating in this mega project. Number two, 1/3 of the GDP resides in the BRI countries. Third, 4.5 billion people are participating in the BRI. And the trade amongst the BRI countries is $1.2 trillion. So I wanted to give you these statistics, which are very important. Also, China plans to invest $900 billion in the BRI countries. So what you see is a BRI family emerging on the map of the world. I talked about transformation. It would transform the economic landscape and also the strategic landscape. First, the economic landscape. You know, when I was in China, China used to use our terminology. They would say that they are being encircled, and they used to call it sea encirclement, not SEA, but C as in the alphabet C. that they were surrounded by countries from all around, whether it was the Southeast Asia, or whether it was India, or whether it was some of the Gulf states or Afghanistan, and they saw it as sea encirclement. And the Western analysts or pro-West analysts used to say that China wants to break out of this encirclement, and they were really cogitating, thinking, reflecting about how to come about with a counter strategy. But there was another strategy which was referred to string of pearls, which was that there would be many. If China wanted to break out of that encirclement, it needed ports, like it needed ports at Chittagong or Hambantota or Gwadar or Djibouti or Egypt perhaps. So that's what was being discussed when I was there. But then they came up with an idea. At that time I can recall that university professors, policy wonks, Communist Party think tanks, they all used to think whether or not they should go to the West through the land route and through the sea route, maritime route. Come 2013, there was a change in leadership. Mr. Hu Jintao and Mr. Wen Xiaopao were replaced by two leaders. One was Mr. Xi Jinping and the Prime Minister, Mr. Li Keqiang. After this new political dispensation, they decided to launch this mega project, which would connect China or East Asia, to be more proper, with Europe, and China with Asia, or East Asia or South Asia, through the Malacca Straits to Africa and Europe. So they were trying to construct a docking port, so to say, for connecting three continents. And the first flagship project was the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It's not the only project, let me tell you. There are at least 6 projects that have been conceived. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is one of them. This corridor branches out of the one belt, not one road. The road is maritime road. Now, in the beginning, the reactions from the Western countries, and particularly from Washington, were very positive. And they said, yes, it's a good thing to do. Connectivity is good. Connectivity is good for the countries. It is good for the regions. But after a while, and particularly after the ascendancy of Mr. Donald Trump, they became worried. And they started reacting angrily, and they said that, no, this is a bad thing. This is an evil thing. This should not happen. And they started reacting, and they started constructing their own counter proposals, or they started launching their own coalitions. And they came up with a strategy that would congeal an atmosphere of animosity. Animosity between whom? China, Russian Federation, all those countries that support the BRI, and 4 countries, namely Japan, Australia, United States, and India. They were opposed to the BRI. And what do they call it? When they meet in Delhi or other locations in Washington, D.C., they call it disruptive transitions. They call it disruptive transitions. Now, nobody is a kid and nobody is kidding. When you have economic transformation at this massive scale, definitely there would be political and strategic consequences and repercussions. Because China's philosophy is that connect the world. But the Western philosophy for a long time was first bipolar, then unipolar, then it was that this new order should not be disrupted. Post-World War II or post two poles bipolar world, This should not be disrupted at all. But China has a different idea and ideology, and that's why you have this clash between not two civilizations or between two political philosophies, which might turn into ideological differences between the two sides. Now, let me talk about CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It is a game changer. It is transformative. And let me tell you that what was the original CPEC that was conceived? It was that it would be 1 + 5. 1 would be the axis, and the axis would be China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and 4 would be Gwadar, infrastructure development, energy production, and finally industrial development. And recently, the government of Pakistan, the government of China got together, and they have launched what they call long-term plan. And it includes, originally the allocation was $46 billion. Right now it's a whopping $62 billion, which is being invested in these projects. And what have they added to the original $46 billion? One, they have added agricultural development. Second is financial cooperation. Third is people-to-people contacts and generation of livelihoods and jobs. And fourth is overall cooperation, which would promote education and businesses. Now, let me talk about risks that are involved. Because I think amongst you, many businessmen and entrepreneurs are sitting here. Whenever you start a business, you have to take certain risks. And this CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is also not risk-free. Let's tackle all these risks one by one. The first risk is uncertain regional and international situation. Because we do not know where the world is going. It's fluid. It's fluid here in South Asia. It's fluid here in our neighborhood. It is also fluid in Washington or Brussels, because right now the United States is dealing with a different kind of president. Let's put it this way. This should sound euphemistic, but this is what I want to say, that a different kind of president. And in Europe, or Western Europe particularly, you have this ascent of what you would call ethnic nationalism. Europe is becoming scared, looking inward. They are not that confident Europe that we used to interact with some years ago. Uncertain regional and global situation. And I think Pakistan, because of its relations with China, because of its relations with Russian Federation, its close ties with Turkey and the Middle Eastern countries, traditional Middle Eastern allies, it will be able to manage the situation and negotiate a transition during this uncertain regional and international situation. Second was security for the China-Pakistan corridor. Now, as you know, it was a threat. The threat stemmed from two sources. One was, of course, terrorism itself, because when President Xi Jinping came here in April 2015, we were in the middle of fighting terrorists, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and there were some elements, subversive elements in different parts of Pakistan who were trying to distance themselves from the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So you had to provide ironclad security to the Chinese workers and managers and financiers who come here. And that's why the armed forces of Pakistan, they stepped up to the plate, and they said that they would raise or create or volunteer two divisions, two full-fledged divisions to protect the Chinese interests, their workplaces, where they live, en route, so that there is no disruption in the projects. Security was tackled. The other thing was that the government of Pakistan, the state of Pakistan, in a very resolute manner, defeated terrorists, first through the operations Darb-e-Azb, and then through Radd al-Fasad. And this has made a difference. This is, I mean, we are talking here in Karachi. This is not the Karachi which was Karachi of yesteryear, or let's say 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. It's a very calm, quiet, confident Karachi that we have today. And this is because of, partly or fully because of those operations. Now, another risk is national unity. As you would recall, that there were many dissenting voices. Some people were saying that it's good, the CPEC is good, others were saying that it's bad, and there was no national unanimity. Consensus, even when it was reached, was fragile, vulnerable to different interpretations. But I think with the passage of time, the people of Pakistan have demonstrated political maturity, and now all provinces, all stakeholders, all leaders are on board. And we have somehow dealt with, very successfully dealt with, this risk factor. Another objection which is raised from time to time is that what about the credit lines? Are the Chinese going to fleece us? And the answer is no. Because let me go back to the original allocation. It was $46 billion US, and the credit was to be given to us for infrastructure project for only $12 billion, and the remaining $34 billion were for energy projects, which were to be initiated, funded, completed, and run and operated by the Chinese themselves. And therefore, this money, whether these were their banks or corporation, this money was to be spent by the Chinese themselves, not by Pakistanis. And I've seen literature which suggests that Sri Lanka and Pakistan, for instance, are incurring debts that they can't pay back. Untrue, false. Because most of the debts that are being given are at concessional rates. And what is a concessional rate? In this case, it's 1%. It is less than the percentage of the interest rate that is given by IFC or IMF. 1%. This is concessional. Then you have preferential buyers. Preferential buyers is usually from 2 to 3%. And then you have some, of course, in this credit mix, there is some commercial rate credit, commercial interest rate credit, and that should be about 5 to 6%. We'll manage it, we'll be in a position to pay back these debts, so there is no credit crisis that we are hurtling towards. I think that success of this project, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is assured. Why? Because people always, I have heard many people here in Pakistan, abroad also, in AZAD Kashmir, they speak in the future tense. They say that the CPEC will do this or that. But part of the CPEC belongs to the past or to the present. Even as we speak, many of the projects are being completed, and we have many early harvest projects which have already started delivering dividends. I mean, you know about Port Qasim coal power project, Sahiwal, Sukhi Kanari. Karot would be completed very soon. Karot hydropower project, it will be completed by 2020. And Kohala power project has been started in Azad Kashmir, and it should be complete by 2024. 25, but I think that I would give credence to the government's figures that in the past 4 years, 10,000 megawatt of energy would be added to your national grid, and it's not a joke. And our deficit used to be 4,500 megawatt or 5,000 megawatt. Now, the most serious risk, so to say, or risks, one is the Indian objection. It is so damn spurious. This objection of theirs that this, the China-Pakistan economic corridor is passing through a disputed territory, for God's sake. Did the Karakoram highway not pass through the disputed territory? And you've lived with that highway for the past several decades. This Karakoram highway was inaugurated back in the late 1970s. So what is different? The difference is that this is a transformative project. And India has suddenly realized that if this project takes off, Pakistan would become prosperous. And it would not be dependent on its eastern neighbor. Its markets would flourish in Central Asia, West Asia, Southwest Asia, Africa, Europe. Pakistan would be an altogether different kind of nation, and probably it would emerge as the Japan of South Asia. If India is emerging as China or trying to emulate China, Pakistan has the potential to become the Japan of South Asia. That's the real worry they've had, and that's why they want to oppose it and block it, and they became nervous. If it was not important, if they only had political objections, they would be dismissive about it. They would not expend so much political capital on this project. But now Mr. Narendra Modi, wherever he goes, all around the world, his topmost talking point is always about CPEC. He complains about it. Now, but we will manage it. We will manage it. In fact, more serious than the Indian objections are disinformation, which is spread by some Western sources. They're saying Pakistan and Sri Lanka and all these countries are going to be colonized. They would be incurring debts. This is a debt trap for them. They would be enslaved, and they would. And you know, in the recent past, what happened that I think it was Australian Foreign Minister who said some time ago that these are useless houses and roads to nowhere, that China's BRI is completing useless houses and roads to nowhere. And you know what the reaction was? The reaction from countries like Fiji or Vanuatu or Samoa was that, no, these are sour grapes, that's all. We needed infrastructure. Infrastructure is being built. And I can tell you that China is building infrastructure in Cambodia, in Laos, in Indonesia. It is connecting Indonesia. Indonesia has two cities, Jakarta and Bandung, by train. In Malaysia, it is investing. It has started investing in the Philippines. So Australia is worried. Their writ, their economic writ, their political strategic writ has been undermined. That's all. And Japan is opposing it because they see China emerging as a contemporary titan. And there is this enmity between the two countries. Western propaganda against CPEC, that may hurt us because some people may genuinely believe that Pakistan is being colonized. And this is not true. They do not look at the facts and figures, and they pick up these political vibes, these political rumors, and then they go on spreading them. So that's a big risk, and Pakistan should also have its own think tanks, its own forums, which would try to rectify the situation and disseminate authentic information, which has more credibility and veracity. What is the way forward for Pakistan? I would say stay the course. Don't be distracted by objections or rumors. Second is that Pakistan's economic outlook right now is very good. The land is fertile for the success of a project like China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The corridor itself is not a substitute for Pakistan's economy. Pakistan is too big to just rely on one project, however big it is. But it is a catalyst, and it's a very good catalyst. And the economic outlook, Pakistan's probably growth rate would go to 5.5% to 6% to 6.5% in the coming years. Remain confident. And the ratings are good. The assessments even given by the most conservative economic analysts in Bloomberg and Reuters and Forbes and Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and Economist Intelligence Unit are good. Don't be discouraged. This is no bravado. We're saying this with our feet firmly on ground. In regard to India and Pakistan, I would say that we should have a very skillful policy. Manage your tense relations with India in a manner that they do not interfere with your economic development. Because your main prism through these years should be economic. Economic development is your strategic pivot. We must understand that. If we will have more money, if we will have more factories, more manufacturing plants, if we will have ports and airports, and we will have transnational fiber optic lines and transnational grids, and we will have industrial parks, trade and industrial parks, constructed with the help of China, we'll be a stronger nation and we'll be able to finance both our conventional and strategic dimensions of security. So they should move in tandem, and there is no tension between them, but manage your relations with India in a very responsible manner. And they should not spin out of control. At the same time, I would say that do not expect any miracles in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, there would be volatility, there would be instability, and no matter how much political capital you invest, you are not going to see stability in the near future. So between this corridor, this narrow corridor of Afghanistan and India, you focus on economic development and you start exploring your own corridors. One corridor could be your Western corridor, branching out of China-Pakistan economic corridor and going to Iran and Turkey and Europe. Or the other could go through the Gulf or around the Gulf to Africa, because Africa is hospitable for Pakistan. There's no animosity against Pakistan. And in fact, many communities there where our peacekeepers have served, they are ready to welcome Pakistan with open arms. Now, my last point in this regard is that a lot of progress in Pakistan would depend on Karachi's confidence. If Karachi exudes confidence, if it manages its affairs more responsibly, more cohesively, with political savvy, I can assure you that this would itself give a big impetus to the success of China-Pakistan corridor and also of Pakistan becoming a country with higher performance and productivity on a global scale. And Karachi should be ambitious, and the entire Pakistan should be ambitious, and our ambition should be that by year 2050, we should be amongst the 10 top economic nations of the world. That should be the ambition, and we should start working towards that aim tirelessly. Let me talk about AZAD Kashmir. In AZAD Kashmir, we have 3 priorities: acceleration of the pace of the freedom struggle. 2, good governance, and good governance comprises meritocracy, accountability, transparency, the rule of law, and access to justice. And we emphasize this, and we're taking practical steps to ensure good governance, because we believe that without good governance, you can't deliver economic development in the real sense of the word. Otherwise, I mean, if you do not have all these ingredients that I have enumerated, you would have income inequalities, you would have abject poverty, you would have denial of justice, and so on. Good governance, number 2. Number 3, economic development. And in the realm of economic development, we are focusing on infrastructure development, hydropower generation, high quality education, universal access to health, promotion of tourism, because we are a beautiful spot in Pakistan. Do come and visit us. It's an open invitation. And if you bring delegations, the presidency would be happy to play host. And extractive industry, believe me, our extractive industry is a treasure trove. What do we have? We have marble and granite and graphite and bentonite and bauxite. We have coal and gold, believe me. We also have gold. And somebody was telling me here that, would you please raise your hand, who said that the coal in Azad Kashmir is of high quality. Limited quantity, but high quality. Yes.
I also want to add one thing, sir.
Hmm.
If you are marble and granite reserves of AZAD are very precious.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. But there would be question. And then we have precious and semi-precious stones, and they include ruby. One of our ministers, her name is Noreen Arif. She loves using superlatives, and she says that our ruby is the best in the world. Not one of the best, it's the best in the world. And I endorse her statement. And we have topaz and tourmaline, and we have blue sapphire. So these are the treasures that we have. And also agriculture, particularly in the fields of horticulture and floriculture, we have immense potential, and telecommunications. Soon, very soon, the entire territory of Azad Kashmir will have universal 3G, 4G coverage. And this would itself be a big transformative step. Now, good news for the people of Azad Kashmir, good news for the people of Pakistan, that Azad Kashmir also has formally become part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And I mentioned two projects earlier. One is the Karot Hydropower Project, 720 megawatt, and Kohala Power Project, 1124 megawatt. These two projects are being implemented right now, and they are being completed under the auspices of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. We have two more additional corridors, two projects. One is an expressway which would stem out of the central artery of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor at Mansehra. From there it would go to Gadi Habibullah, from there to Lohargali, to Muzaffarabad, to Kohala, to Azad Pattan, to Holard, to Mirpur, from Mirpur to Dina, and from Mirpur to Bhimbar. This will cut across the entire territory of Azad Kashmir and give us an inextricable link with the central artery of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The last one is the industrial zone. There are 9 industrial zones which would be built under CPEC in the whole of Pakistan, and one industrial zone, we're lucky to have it, will be in Mirpur. It would be a state-of-the-art industrial zones. For that zone, initial feasibility has been done, land is being acquired right now, and funds have been allocated. This would usher in an economic revolution in Azad Kashmir. This would create jobs and businesses, and we will have more interaction with the rest of the world. We are also determined to change our tourism industry into a disciplined industry. It is not an industry, as a matter of fact, right now. It is operated most of the time by the private sector. The government is also participating, but right now we are also constructing a tourism corridor which would start from Saran Chikar and it would go to these summits like Ganga Choti or Haji Pir or Toli Pir. From there it would go down to Banjosa, from Banjosa to Devi Gali. This is our ambition, and this is a 200-kilometer long corridor which we are going to construct. And once again, I want to reiterate my invitation to all of you to come and visit Azad Kashmir. My very last point is about the Indian occupied Kashmir. The people of the Indian occupied Kashmir are suffering. A couple of days ago, we marked the Kashmir Solidarity Day, and we sent 3 messages to the international community and to the Kashmiris. First, to the Indians, stop killing Kashmiris. Stop committing these crimes against humanity, these war crimes, because they are not supported by any law. And we have also warned them that the Kashmiris and Pakistanis of this generation and the future generations are never going to forgive them for these crimes. Let me also tell you that history is cruel. I mean, today they think that they can kill and maim and torture and dishonor women with impunity, but then historical forces would strike back. Today they think that we are weak and we cannot take our freedom back from the 700,000 Indian soldiers who are armed to teeth. But our time would come. Our second message is to the people of Jammu and Kashmir that we are with you every step of the way, that we express our full solidarity with you with your struggle for the realization of the right to self-determination, and we recognize that your movement is not a terrorist movement, that this movement is a peaceful movement, and you are, in fact, striving for a just cause, and we are with you. And finally, to the international community, our message to the international community that you are demonstrating these double standards. One standard is for Syria and Yemen and Libya or Tunisia or South Sudan or Central African Republic or Mali, and one standard is for Kashmiris and Palestinians. They disappear, they vaporize from your radar screen. And we think that this kind of acquiescence, this kind of siding with the Indians in itself constitutes a crime against humanity. And before I conclude my remarks, you have something to give to me? Yeah. On the 5th of February at the presidency, we launched a hashtag. And this hashtag on Twitter is called Kashmir, hashtag Kashmir Matters. Hashtag Kashmir Matters. And since then, I've spoken at various universities or at various gatherings or press clubs, and I have appealed to the audience to search this hashtag and contribute one tweet. There was an event organized by the Hartford University and the Millennium University College. I was at the press club, and I met the community members of Karachi yesterday. And my appeal was that you always think of what the government is doing. What are we doing at the United Nations? What are our political leaders doing? What are the leaders of AZAD Kashmir doing? I said, but this is your individual responsibility. You can make a contribution, track down this hashtag and contribute a tweet. Would you promise that you would do it? I'm addressing now all of you. Please raise your hands. Well, thank you. Thank you. The ones who haven't, I ask their neighbors to hold their hands high. Yes. It's on Twitter. It's on Twitter. Let me mention it. It's a hashtag on जी आपका हाथ खड़ा है, आपकी वाबस्तगी और वफादारी साबित हुई, मैं आपको करता हूँ salute. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a pleasure to talk to you.